Are you ready to ditch the shoebox full of receipts? Step into your future with your business finances? Well, today's guest is no ordinary numbers nerd. Nikole Mackenzie is transformed her business and she's a recovering tax and audit CPA. Turned accounting powerhouse. Nikole doesn't just crunch numbers, she transforms businesses. With her easygoing vibe, contagious enthusiasm, and a knack for building accounting systems that actually work, she has helped hundreds of small businesses and owners go from overwhelmed to overachieving. Nikole's high standards and competitive spirit means she's always aiming for the top, both for herself and for her clients. She's not afraid to think big, dream bigger, and make it all happen with precision and flair. If you ever wondered how to turn your accounting department from a necessary evil into your secret weapon for growth, you're about to find out. Let's get into it with Nikole, the woman who makes spreadsheets sexy and successful inevitable.
Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Dr. Susie Carter hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to take your first steps towards explosive business growth, this podcast is for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Dr. Susie.
Nikole, thank you so much. I'm so excited for everyone to meet you because you are actually a recovered CPA. Does that mean you went through a CPA detox? Tell us the moment you decided that tax and audit life wasn't the vibe anymore.
Yeah, great question. So I like to say that. So when I left college, studied accounting in college, and really at that time, there was only two career paths. If you, it was either you go into audit, which is basically, public companies need audits, nonprofits need audits. So that was one career path. And then the other one was you can go and do taxes. So I was lucky. I was at a small firm where I got to do a little bit of both and then chose to go down the tax path. And I remember I worked downtown San Francisco, and I remember being in my cubicle one day and seeing the partner who sat in the office outside my cube, and he would come skipping in at 6 a.m. and he would leave at 10 o'clock at night, and he just absolutely loved taxes. And I was sitting there as a 20-something-year-old on a Saturday working tax season thinking, man, I don't know if I chose the right career for myself. And also I'm never going to love taxes as much as that guy.
Right.
So at some point, I was looking into I got burnt out. I was actually looking to leave public accounting. And then in 2014, that firm hired a director to come on and start our outsourced accounting service line. So if you think back to 10 years ago, prior to that, most small businesses were on some sort of desktop software like QuickBooks Desktop. Their spouse or some office admin is coming in and doing their bookkeeping, and then they're filing their tax return and talking to their CPA a couple of times a year. Now, about 10 years ago, QuickBooks Online and Xero came about, which are online cloud-based accounting software, which created this whole new career path for now accountants, where we get to be much more involved in the day-to-day of business owners. So when I switched over to the outsourced accounting department, that is when I fell in love with all of this new technology. I fell in love with actually being involved in the day-to-day operations of small businesses rather than just taking the numbers and putting them on a tax return. I was now seeing different revenue models. I was seeing how they were hiring and really being more of a day-to-day resource for them. And so I really fell in love with that kind of work. So in our industry, we call it CAS, Client Accounting Services. And I did that at that firm for a couple of years. And then I started Momentum Accounting, my firm now, about 8 years ago.
And so what do you do now? How do you help? Because you've helped hundreds of businesses that business owners turn their accounting from chaos to calm. So how do you do that now?
Yeah. So what we do at Momentum, we're a 100% remote team. We've been remote for since we first started, and I like to call us like a fractional accounting department, accounting and finance department. So if you think of a bigger company, the way their accounting department looks is they usually have a bookkeeper, they have an accounts payable department, they have accounts receivable department, they have a controller, they have financial planning analysis, they have a CFO, they have a payroll department, they have sales tax compliance. So smaller businesses need all of these roles and expertise, but they don't need a full-time person in all of those positions. And so what we do is we come in and we replicate that model with our team, and our clients pay us a monthly recurring fee to basically be their outsourced accounting department. Another thing we do is, because we worked with hundreds of different businesses, we're also very on top of the latest technology. So we come in and either, in some cases, our more mature businesses we work with, that have been around for 10 or 15 years, they've got like an in-house controller retiring, and we can come in and basically transform their finances, financial operations. So using modern technology. Or we've got our newer business owners, startups, and they're trying to piece together QuickBooks Online with an accounts payable software and payroll software and spend management. And so we come in and really like make the pieces all fit together so it's streamlined.
And so what do you see, be honest, the things, I don't want to say one thing because, I don't do your role, but I'm looking in the finances all the time. What are the things that we're doing wrong as small businesses in our finances that makes you want to throw a calculator at us or at a
Yeah. So we use a framework at Momentum we internally call profit points. And so what we do, the first interaction we have with a prospect is we do an assessment. And so we look at 5 key areas. So if you can visualize this, we've got cash flow is at the core of what we do. But
Yep.
what drives cash flow? So number one thing is profitability. So the first thing I'm looking at is what is your profit margins compared to what they should be. And what they should be could be industry standards, or in Momentum, we have something called the 50-30-20 rule. So the idea is as a percentage of revenue, no more than 50% of your direct costs, or sorry, no more than your direct cost should be no more than 50% of your revenue, and your overhead cost should be no more than 30% of your revenue. And that leaves you with 20% net profit margin. So that's like our base framework that we work off of. And then we'll kind of tweak it depending on what industry. And so part of that is like, are you actually categorizing things directly between direct costs and overhead costs? So we'll set up your financials and your P&L in a way that makes sense. I always recommend if you have $1 million or more in revenue, that should be on accrual basis. Accrual basis just makes it way easier to analyze your financial statements, especially on a month-over-month basis. So we're getting them set up on accrual basis. We're looking at, are they breaking out the different service lines correctly on their P&L in a way that is useful to analyze it? And then if they're 50, 30s, 20s off, then it tells us, is it a pricing problem? Is it an efficiency problem within delivery? Or, it's rare that they're overspending on overhead costs. Usually it's up in the direct costs as a percentage of revenue because their pricing's off, right? So then it's like, what's going on with pricing? Or if, on a service business, is our team spending too much time not doing billable client work? So it's figuring out so that's like the profitability part of it. And then the other pillar would be technology. So a lot of our clients we work with, they're still sending out invoices and waiting for clients to pay them. So how can we actually control cash coming in better? And so we'll help them implement ACH technology, or an ACH system where they can actually get a proposal signed, take the client's ACH information, and then pull money from their bank account rather than sending out invoices and waiting to get paid. And then obviously you have a bunch of cash sitting in your customer's bank account that really could be in your bank account. And then we also help them implement the right people and the org structure. So a lot of times clients are missing that controller role, or small businesses rather are missing that controller role. And so A controller is really the person in the accounting department that's managing the bookkeeper, that's serving up financial data that's useful for you to look at as the business owner. They're managing the AR process and the AP process, and they're also setting up controls to prevent you from being stolen from. So I would say that's one thing that a lot of small business owners don't know about is this controller role. Like they've heard of bookkeeper, they've heard of CFO, but they don't know what a controller does. So the way I like to describe like the difference between a bookkeeper, a controller, and a CFO is a bookkeeper tells you what happened, a controller tells you why it happened, and a CFO tells you what's going to happen.
Oh, I like that. I've never heard that. Okay, the
Um,
bookkeeper is what happened, the controller is why it happened.
why it happened, so they're able to do the analysis.
Mhm.
And then the CFO is typically telling you, like they're talking about strategy, helping you possibly with a forecast, things like
Jeez,
that. So,
that's good. That kind of level sets the expectation of what do I need with each person, right? Or and if it's one person, because I think in small business, one person is doing all the roles, but are they good at all the roles? And what do we
that
as a whole, right?
exactly, and that's the problem because if you bring in a CFO, they're not going to be doing the transactional level work. You're going to be overpaying them. If you bring in a bookkeeper, they're not
Mhm.
going to be able to do the CFO level work, and so that's why it's same thing within like a marketing function, right? Someone might be good at copywriting, someone might be good at SEO, someone might be good at email marketing, someone might be more strategic. And so it's the same concept within an accounting and finance department is you need different people with different expertise. And then so the last thing we do is set up the routines and the rigor within an accounting department. So it's like, what are you doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis? What's the data you're looking at? Who's delivering that data to you? And then like what are the actions that who's accountable for what within that? So it's the entire system
Yeah,
that drives the cash flow, and you can't have one without the other. You need those four components to ultimately have an effective financial operating system.
that's juicy. So let's talk a little bit because you kind of dropped it like a little ding. Let's talk about pricing because I know working with clients, they just pull pricing out of their butt. And they go, Nicole charges this, Susie charges this, Bill charges this, I'm going to charge this. Talk about how
Yeah.
support people in figuring out the right pricing and what are the important elements they need to know when they're
Yeah.
pricing.
Yep. So I like to keep it really simple. This is what I call understanding and creating your walkaway price. So what is the minimum price that you need to charge to be profitable? And when I define profitable, I mean what's actually going to trickle down to a 20% net profit on your P&L. So I tell my clients that they should be marking up, let's use a service-based business as an example. You should be marking up your hourly cost of your employee 3.5 times. And to arrive, and you may not bill by the hour, right? So you have a retainer or monthly fixed fee or whatever. If you to calculate your hourly cost of employee, take their salary. Let's say you have $100,000 a year employee doing billable client work, multiply that by call it 1.1 or 1.15. And so what I'm doing here is I'm adding on 10 to 15% for payroll taxes, which is already 7.5, 8%, benefits, health insurance, 401k, things like that. So at a minimum, you're probably paying 110,000 on the high end, maybe 115,000 for this person. And if you take that and divide it by 2080, that's how many hours are in a year. That is their hourly cost. So if you take that number and you multiply it by 3.5, that's the hourly rate you should be billing them out at.
Juicy.
And then I usually recommend that, in that case, that they're 80% utilized, right? So that they're spending 80% of their time on billable work. And if you follow that 80% and the 3.5, you should get a 20% net profit margin on your client or on your P&L after you pay yourself as the owner. And that's the key thing here, that you should be you as the business owner. There's owner you and there's employee you. Employee you gets the salary. or guaranteed payments. Owner U gets profit.
You're listening to another episode of Power Your Profits podcast. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Are you tired of struggling to take your business to the next level? Power Your Profits is the game-changing book you've been waiting for. Dr. Susie Carter, creator of the Predictable Success Method, reveals her proven strategies for explosive growth. From daily operations to marketing systems, this comprehensive guide empowers you to achieve predictable revenue and profit growth. Don't miss out on this invaluable wisdom. Transform your business today. Find your copy at books.poweryourprofits.com. Overwhelmed by the complexity of business profit strategies? Jump aboard the Bullet Train to Big Profits course, a streamlined solution by Dr. Susie Carter. This course is designed to uncomplicate the path to profitability. Imagine being able to identify and execute profit strategies with ease, skyrocketing your revenues. Visit course.poweryourprofits.com and sign up for the Bullet Train to Big Profits course today.
Well, we know 80% of small businesses aren't paying themselves a proper paycheck. So let's start there, right?
Yeah, right. And that's more just to like normalize it too, right? Because depending on industry structure, but let's just say you weren't paying yourself a salary, but you want to do is sort of add back, say for $1 million business, you'll add back 100,000 as your salary, even if you're not actually paying yourself that. And then you should still see that 20% net profit margin that you get to take out in the form of distributions.
So then I know a lot of people are going, sometimes when I talk about finances, we talked a little bit about in the green room that math is money, money is fun, and you love it as much as I do. We get geeked out about it. So if somebody is like, you sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, they can just hire you to do it. Because let's face it, let's stay in your lane. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And so how do you start working with a client? What's the best way to start investigating if you're the right firm for them?
Yeah, so it starts with a 30-minute intro call. And during that call, I'm just understanding what are your high-level problems. I'm looking at those, I'm listening for those key 5 areas again. And then what we do is just get access to their QuickBooks Online or Xero. And I run it through a financial assessment. So I'm looking at what are their profit margins the last 12 months. Historically, how have they done the last 5 years? How long does it take customers to pay? What app stack are they using? What kind of tech are they using? Is it the best tech that we would recommend, best in class? Who do they have internally that's doing some of these processes versus what we would be taking over? And so sometimes, our clients may have an in-house accounts receivable or maybe even a bookkeeper. And what we'll do is we can come in and play the controller. Some of our clients don't have any accounting staff. And so we come in and build the accounting function for them from the ground up. So we're really, the nice thing about it, it's a plug and play solution. As the business scales, we can also scale with them. And then at a certain point, our clients may, sometimes this happens with some of our VC-backed companies we work with, where they get their Series A and all of a sudden they've got $20 million in the bank and now they've got to hire in-house controller. Like, okay, great, we got you to where we needed to, and then now it makes sense for you to hire in-house. But we bridge that gap between they don't need a full-time in-house person, or like hiring a full-time in-house person doesn't make sense, and get to help them scale to get to that point.
Awesome. So what's your scariest accounting horror story that you've seen, and how'd you fix it?
Yeah. So actually the inspiration for creating profit points, we have this client. It was a security staffing company in San Francisco, $10 million top line. And when they came to us, what had happened is a family-owned business started by dad in the 1970s. And dad passes away at some point. One of his daughters takes over running the business. And mom, who still owns 80% of the company, isn't active anymore, but still owns a good share of it. And that's basically her retirement. Finds out that the daughter had been embezzling from the company. She stops getting any distributions out of it, no money coming from it, and finds out daughter has bought, a condo in Miami, running Gucci bags through it, and that's why mom's not getting distributions anymore. So mom and other daughter decided we're going to take this business back over, and they've never run a business before, and they're coming in with no business experience running a $10 million business. So we get referred in by their forensic accountant,
Mhm.
and so they're going through the lawsuit with sister. Their business is like always, they're like one payroll away from bankruptcy, not making payroll. They're going through a class action lawsuit from the employees. And so it's just like complete chaos when we came on. And so we ended up over 2.5 years. We built their accounting system from the ground up. We had to go back and do like 2 years worth of finances. We found out one of their employees had stolen like $400,000 from them. We started seeing these like $1 transactions come through on the American Express card.
Mhm.
And so we kept asking about them. Anyway, long story short, we found out that he was looking at webcam girls on the internet and giving them dollar tips. Those dollars added up to $400,000. So ended up catching that. He got fired. And then so they went from almost going bankrupt. We got them to the point where they were actually profitable. So between that and then also they had about $1 million in accounts receivable because they had this terrible AR process where they were still like mailing out invoices.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
so we got them on electronic payment processors. So we ended up getting like $800,000 of AR into their bank account. We helped them go like get better terms in terms of like getting paid up front rather than sending out invoices and getting paid. And then ultimately, so between the profit increase, the cash flow increase from getting that old AR into their bank account, that was an additional $2 million. And then they ended up selling the business for $3 million. So it was an additional $5 million that we infused into their business. And then Judy, the owner, was able to retire. And I mean, otherwise she would have basically lost her entire retirement. And so that's kind of like my why and why I do this. And what I realized from that experience was now when I can go in and work with another client, I can see right away those things and I can
Yeah.
start with the outcome first. I can actually give them the dollar value that we can help them with versus before, it was newer on. I was still trying to figure things out. I just got my job. I was coming at it of like, okay, how do I fix the next problem, fix the next problem? So we really took that as a perfect example of where all areas were messed up. And
Yeah.
then we came in and fixed them. So, so since then, again, we've worked with at Momentum probably over 100 different clients in my career, 15-year career in accounting. I've worked with over 1,000 different businesses. So we see a lot of the same patterns over and over again. And so what we want to do is come in and like let our clients know that like we know how to do this. We've been there, we've done that, we've seen everything, and we want you to be able to just have full, complete trust that you can leave the accounting and finances with us, and we'll be able to push up data to you that will help you make better decisions so that you feel more empowered as a business owner rather than stressed out, struggled, confused.
I'm like, I try to tell my clients that embezzlement is common, right? Employee theft is common. Do you see it a lot in your business?
It is really common. And I heard a stat. So actually, we had another business we came on, and their in-house bookkeeper who had been there for like 15 years. The owner was like, she was like a mom to me. I didn't think she would ever do that. He told me that the forensic accountant that they were working with said 99% of the time that fraud happens within a business, it's one person acting alone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have one person that's paying your bills, that's doing your bank rec, that's doing payroll, your odds are much higher of being stolen from. And it's always somebody that you trust, right? In my example, like it was literally they got stolen from twice.
Right.
One was from their own family member, but it was the accounting function. There was nobody. I mean, it was the wife's husband was doing the accounting the first time around, and then the next time before we took over, it was this one guy. And so, yeah, if you have an in-house single person, that's like very high, it makes it very easy for them to do it, to hide it, and to justify it.
Right. People don't realize, how common it is. That's why it's important to have someone like you, a checks and balance, right? It happened in my own company. Once we sold our company, we were still running everything, and our CFO all of a sudden started, luckily we knew what to look for. And we're like, wait, this is wrong, right? Something's wrong. Something's wrong. And it took us a minute to figure it out. And then we're like, what? Rick stole money from us?
Yeah.
It was all, it was about 80 grand, which, in light, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was still like, how dare you? Right. And we had such explicit trust with this man. He had been with us for 5 years previous to the sale of the company. And then he figured, oh, well, now they've got this big company and big, bottomless pockets. And if we were not doing our own due diligence, the parent company wouldn't have caught it. There was just too much going on, which is bananas. So
Yeah. And that's situations where you actually found it. I mean, a lot of times people don't, and yeah, a lot of times it's the emotional part of it that's almost worse than the dollar amount. Somebody that you trust, that you feel betrayed.
exactly. We had one employee wash checks, at another
Oh gosh.
company. I'm like, what? Like, you just learn to go, okay, let me just put checks and balances. But my girlfriend always said, don't trust the God in people. Just have that checks and balance. So let's talk about your own business, right? So you're scaling your accounting firm while helping others grow is no small feat. What's your secret to staying on top of your own game while coaching others to level up?
I love being around other entrepreneurs. So I've been in EO, I'm now in Vistage, and I have found that being in a peer group like that, number one, it's super inspiring. But two, as we're building our businesses, there's somebody out there that has had the same challenge as you do, right? Like we're not, while we may think we are unique, fundamentally the pieces of growing a business are the same. And so what I love is like having that peer group to be like, hey, I'm going through this right now. And then people can share of how they have been part of a similar situation and how they overcame it, or they may have a resource or something that they can refer in. So I am very much like almost like I wake up thinking about business. I go to bed thinking about business. I just love business and entrepreneurship. And so I'm a lifelong learner of it, and I get excited by the game. And so I think, that's what keeps me going every day.
So what's on your next take over the world to-do list for Nicole?
Well, I think like with momentum, we've sort of been this like boutique small firm, like go on a wait list. We only have 40 clients, and I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And this year I decided I'm gonna grow it. I'm gonna put my pedal to the metal a little bit here and experience what it's like to be a bigger business. So I'm looking to grow this year. I'm also looking to like for the right person in terms of like leadership and operational excellence. So making sure we have all our ducks in a row so that when I do put my pedal on the gas, that we're all set up for scale.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. So how do you keep your work engaging with your clients? Because I know people don't like to hear about the math and they don't want to do their numbers and they just shut down. So how do you keep it fun and engaging? And what's your secret sauce?
Yeah, I mean, I think as cliche as it is, it really is the people at Momentum. We're not just behind the scenes bookkeepers where we send you your reports. Almost all of our clients have at least a monthly meeting with their advisor. And so during those meetings, not only is our team a resource for anything that they need, finance, accounting, they're also there to teach. And so I find like one of the biggest values our clients see working with us is they feel smarter afterwards because they have, especially in that first 12 months for a newer business owner that experienced fast growth and success where they have a bunch of revenue in a successful business, but they may have only been in business for a few years. And so they were never taught, how to read a balance sheet or how to think about pricing or how to read a P&L. And so our team really is that support system.
That's awesome. So think about you when you first started, what do you wish someone would have told you about starting your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say trust your gut. I think a lot of times, and this could be just absorbing a lot of information all the time, is you hear something and then you try to apply it in your own business. But you really have to trust your own gut. And if you believe something, really question yourself of like, do I actually believe this? Or is it because someone told me this? Or why do I actually believe this? So I would encourage anyone to really think about why you actually believe something. And if it's just because someone else told you that's what you should do, that may not always be the right answer.
Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, we go sparkle, squirrel, and we sign up for all these classes. Like, no, stop.
Yeah.
What do you need, right? Don't just get caught up in the sparkle and the squirrel.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to like do it. The other thing I would say is like, just do it, because there's nothing to replace experience. So it's sometimes like I catch myself overthinking about something and like learning all about it or watching all these videos. I'm like, why don't you just freaking do it? And then you can figure out and adjust from there.
Right. Well, and I love it. Like you said, I'm a lifelong learner too. I use Vistage. I think over 8 years, I was part of that group and loved it. It was great. So it's having a firm like yourself that you're mentoring people while you're doing good work, right? If you could give every small business owner one piece of tough love financial advice, what would it bring? And feel free just to bring all your sass, girl.
My gosh, one piece. I honestly think it's like understanding and nailing that 50-30-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding when you look at your profit and loss statement, what should be in that direct cost bucket, what should be in overhead. And let me just like, your overhead costs are what the infrastructure business, right? It's your HR, it's your IT, it's your accounting, it's your salary as the owner, it's your rent if you have an office building. And then your direct costs are your expenses to deliver your product or service. So if you have an inventory-based business, that would be, what are your cost of goods sold? And then a service-based business would be your people who are actually delivering the client work. So really understand how to set up your P&L in that way and look at your margins, because it's going to give you the answer on where you're overspending, where you're inefficient, and where you actually have budget where you can invest more.
Right, girl, this was so juicy. And so I think this was everything we needed today, from transforming accounting chaos into clarity and showing us how to dream big, deliver even bigger, right? You're living proof that finances don't have to be boring. They can actually be fun, and they can actually be the backbone to a thriving enterprising. So if you found value in this episode, let's be honest, how could you not? You were juicy. Right? The love of what you do. Take this moment, share, subscribe, send it to somebody that you know needs Nicole, right? Because we're all looking for that next person to help us wrap our arms around this thing called business, right? We want you to work on the things that's your highest income producing activity. And this is Nicole's highest income producing activity, right? So thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode of Power Your Profits. And remember, your profits are only as powerful as your willingness to take control of your business and be honest with yourself. So go out there, take action. Let's build that dream together. And until next time, I'm your coach, Susie Carter, with my fabulous friend, Nikole Mackenzie.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at www.poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game. So be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.